The moon had always been merciless with him. Long ago, when the alpha of Blackthorn Pack stood beneath her pale light, he made a vow that echoed like iron. He would never love again. They whispered he had once been blessed with a mate, radiant as dawn itself, but had lost her through a mistake no wolf dared to name. Some said he betrayed her. Others claimed the moon goddess cursed him for arrogance. Whatever the truth, the scar was carved deep. His heart was untouchable. The pack obeyed him, feared him, revered him, but no one reached him. At gatherings his eyes were sharp ice, at council his voice was unyielding stone. To the world he was unbreakable, a man forged without softness. Yet there was one girl who never believed it. She watched him from the shadows year after year, the Beta's quiet daughter. Small, overlooked, her presence barely stirred the air when she passed. But her gaze lingered when others looked away. She saw the heaviness he carried when he thought no one watched. She felt the ache in his silence, the way his hand sometimes curled against his chest, as if touching an invisible wound. She loved him in secret, foolishly, hopelessly, loved him in every stolen glance, every hidden smile that never left her lips. But her heart knew a truth her tongue never dared to speak. An alpha cursed by the moon could never love her back. Still, some nights she dreamed. In those dreams, the alpha's cold mask shattered, and his eyes found hers. Not as Beta's daughter, not as another wolf in the pack, but as his. The dream always ended the same way. The moon flared, his body fell, blood in the snow, and she woke with the taste of loss on her lips, though she had never held him. The moon goddess had taken his heart, yet hers, stubborn and fragile, had already been given. The pack house glowed with life that night, laughter and footsteps echoing through its halls as preparations for the mating ritual stretched into every corner. Wolves preened in the mirrors, dresses shimmered, cologne and perfume mingled in the air like the promise of destiny itself. She lingered at the edge of it all, half hidden in the stairwell shadows. Alara, that was her name, though few bothered to say it with care. To most, she was simply the Beta's daughter, dutiful, quiet, dependable. She carried scrolls to the elders, fetched tea for her father, and melted into the background when the pack gathered. But tonight her heart thudded too loud to ignore, because tonight he would stand beneath the moon again. Tonight the alpha might choose his mate. Her fingers twisted the hem of her dress, soft blue fabric borrowed from her cousin. It wasn't beautiful enough, not compared to the silks that clung to the other wolves, but it was the best she had. She only wanted to look once, just once, like someone who might matter to him. Her father passed by, voice booming with authority as he oversaw the preparations. Alara, stay close. The ritual is no place for wandering eyes. She nodded, though her gaze had already strayed. Across the hall, the alpha moved through the gathering crowd. Tall, commanding, every step laced with the power of a man born to lead. His black suit clung to broad shoulders, his hair catching silver where the torches burned. No one dared to block his path. The pack parted for him as though instinct demanded it. Her breath caught. He hadn't looked at her, not once, but she felt his presence like the press of a storm in her chest. A girl nearby whispered to her friend, "If the alpha chooses me, I'll bear his heirs before winter." Imagine that. Another scoffed, he doesn't even look at you. He'll take a strong warrior's daughter, not some pretty face. Alara turned away, cheeks hot. She knew they were right. She was not the kind the alpha would notice, not with so many others, powerful, dazzling, worthy, circling him like moths to flame. Still, her eyes betrayed her. They lingered on him as he paused by the great fire pit, where the moon's glow stretched long across the floor. He looked every bit the alpha, untouchable and eternal. But when no one else noticed, she caught the faintest flicker in his gaze. Loneliness sharp as glass. It was gone as quickly as it came, swallowed by cold indifference. She drew in a shaky breath. Don't hope, she scolded herself. Not tonight, not ever. Yet as the drums began to beat and the pack gathered for the ritual, her heart refused to listen. Because no matter how silent her lips stayed, her soul whispered the same truth it had for years. She belonged to him, even if he would never belong to her. The drums deepened, a heartbeat echoing through the night. One by one, the pack circled the fire pit, their shadows thrown long by the dancing flames. Above them, the moon hung full and merciless, spilling silver across the clearing. Tonight, the goddess would guide the alpha's choice. Illyra stood at the edge, hands clenched so tightly the fabric of her dress wrinkled beneath her grip. Her father, the beta, had taken his place beside the elders, his proud figure outlined against the firelight. All eyes were on the alpha. He stepped forward, towering, every line of his body carved in authority. His voice rolled low, steady, carrying to every wolf gathered. "The moon shines tonight to bless this pack," he began. "She binds us, she makes us strong, and she grants us the bond of fated mates." The crowd stirred, excitement rippling like wind over grass. Some young wolves clutched hands, others straightened, hopeful, waiting to hear if their name would be spoken. Illyra's breath stuttered in her chest. She told herself not to hope, she had no right to, but still her body betrayed her, trembling with a desperate wish. The alpha's gaze swept the circle. For one breathless moment, it seemed to linger on her. Her heart leapt, then froze. He continued, voice cutting sharp through the night. "But hear me now, I will take no mate." A gasp tore through the crowd. Whispers erupted instantly, shock and confusion spiraling. The alpha's jaw tightened. His eyes, cold as ice, swept over them again. "I will not be bound, not tonight, not ever." Her heart plummeted. The words struck like claws, tearing through her chest. "Not ever." The whispers, sharpened, cruel in the way only gossip could be. Did you see her face? She thought he would choose her. Pathetic. The beta's daughter dreaming above her station. Illyra forced herself still, her chin lifting, though her eyes burned. She would not let them see her break. She would not let him see. But the alpha god's the alpha. His gaze cut to hers again. For a fleeting heartbeat, there was something raw in his eyes, regret, pain. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only frost. The ritual dissolved into murmurs, wolves scattering, disappointed or relieved. The elders frowned, but none dared challenge him. Illyra's father placed a heavy hand on her shoulder, his voice rough. "Stand tall, do not shame us." She nodded, though her chest screamed. She wanted to run, to hide where no one could see the tears threatening to spill. But she stayed until the last torch burned low, her body rigid, her heart shattered. When the night finally broke apart and the alpha turned away, she realized the truth she had always feared. He had not just rejected a mate bond. He had rejected her. The clearing had emptied hours ago, but the echo of his words still haunted her. Not tonight. Not ever. Illyra lay awake in her narrow bed beneath the slanted roof of the beta's house, staring at the beams above her. The laughter of the others had long since faded into silence, but her chest still ached as though claws had raked her from the inside. Every whisper replayed in her head, cruel and cutting, pathetic, dreaming above her station. They didn't need to say her name. She had seen it in their smirks, in the way their eyes darted toward her when the alpha refused the bond. She rolled onto her side, pressing her hand hard against her mouth, forcing the sobs to stay buried. She had kept her feelings secret for years, and she would not fail now. No one could ever know that her love had been shattered in one brutal moment. But even through the pain, her heart betrayed her with another memory. The flicker she had seen in his gaze, that brief unguarded moment before the ice returned. Regret. She was sure of it, as if the alpha himself had wanted something else, but was bound by chains no one else could see. Then why did he destroy me in front of everyone? A knock rattled softly at her door. Her father's voice, heavy with authority, carried through the wood. "Illyra, enough grieving. The alpha has chosen his path. We stand behind him, no matter what it costs." She swallowed hard, forcing steadiness into her tone. "Yes, father." But when the footsteps retreated, her body curled tight, as though she could hold herself together by sheer force. Outside, the forest whispered. She slipped from her bed and pushed open the window. Moonlight spilled across the trees, silver and merciless. Somewhere out there, he walked the borders alone, as he always did after gatherings. She could almost see him, all untouchable, his shadow cutting across the night. Her lips parted, a whisper carried only by the wind. "Why can't you just see me?" But the woods gave no answer. The next day, she moved like a ghost through the pack house. Wolves spoke in hushed tones, avoiding her gaze. Every corner reminded her of the humiliation. Every face carried a flicker of pity or scorn. When she passed the training yard, she caught sight of him. The Alpha sparred with 2 warriors, his strikes sharp, merciless. The air around him burned with authority, his dominance undeniable, but between blows his jaw tightened, his eyes shadowed. Their gazes met for the briefest heartbeat. She dropped hers instantly, shame burning her cheeks. He said nothing. She said nothing. But in that silence, she felt the weight of everything unsaid pressing heavier than words ever could. By dusk, she retreated into the woods alone, the only place she could breathe. The pines swallowed her sorrow, their branches sheltering her from the world. Yet even here his presence lingered in her mind, impossible to banish. Her love had become something forbidden now, dangerous even. And still she carried it, because even if her heart bled, it still whispered the same truth. She had never stopped belonging to him. The forest was restless that night. Wolves prowled the borderlands, unease prickling through the air like static. A rogue scent had been caught on the wind, sharp, foreign, and laced with blood. The beta dispatched warriors, and Alara found herself carrying supplies to the sentries stationed along the ridge. It was routine work, nothing that should have drawn attention. Until shadows moved where they shouldn't. She paused, basket in hand, ears straining. The whisper of leaves stilled, and then, faster than her breath, 2 dark figures slipped between the trees, rogues. Their eyes gleamed yellow, feral, unbound by pack law. Alara's heart stuttered. She stumbled back, feet crunching on the underbrush. One of them snarled, teeth flashing, and then he was there. The Alpha emerged from the darkness like a storm given flesh. His presence filled the clearing, his wolf barely contained beneath his skin. With a guttural growl, he launched himself at the nearest rogue, the force of his strike shaking the ground. The fight was brutal. Claws tore, teeth snapped, blood spattered across the leaves. Alara froze, every nerve burning as she watched him move. Merciless, lethal, every strike carrying the weight of a leader who would never yield. But in the chaos, one rogue broke past him, lunging for her. She gasped, too slow to move. The Alpha's voice thundered across the clearing. Alara, in a flash, he tore the attacker away, throwing the wolf into the dirt with bone, breaking force. His chest heaved, his body shielding hers. The air between them burned, her heart racing at the sound of her name in his mouth. For a moment, the world narrowed to just the 2 of them. The Alpha's hand gripping her arm, his eyes blazing not with indifference, but with fear. "Are you hurt?" His voice was rough, urgent. She shook her head, breathless. I'm fine." His gaze raked over her, searching, as though he didn't quite believe her. His jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be out here. What were you thinking?" The harshness in his tone snapped the moment in 2. Alara dropped her gaze, heat rising in her cheeks, of course. Concern, if that's what it had been, had no place here. He would never allow it. "I was only bringing supplies," she murmured. "You could have been killed." The growl beneath his words betrayed something fierce, something raw. But just as quickly, he stepped back, pulling the mask of Alpha over his face again. "Go home. Stay where you belong." She wanted to protest, wanted to ask why he cared if she lived or died when he had already shattered her heart before the entire pack. But the words tangled on her tongue. Instead, she turned, clutching her basket tight, her pulse still racing. Behind her, his voice was low, almost too soft for the night to carry. "Don't ever scare me like that again." Her steps faltered. She looked back, but his expression was already carved in stone, his attention fixed on the bloodied rogues at his feet. Alara walked into the darkness, her chest burning. She could not decide if his words were command or confession. The morning after the rogue attack, the pack buzzed with unease. Warriors sharpened blades, scouts reported strange scents on the wind, and whispers spread like wildfire through the courtyards. Alara kept her head down as she carried scrolls from the council chamber. But no matter how hard she tried to vanish into routine, she felt eyes on her. Wolves glanced at her with something between pity and curiosity. Everyone had seen the Alpha shielding her. Everyone had heard her name ripped from his throat like a command of life and death. She prayed the gossip would fade quickly. Instead, it sharpened. "Maybe she's more important than we thought." One girl whispered as Alara passed. Another snickered, or maybe she just got lucky before the rogues tore her apart. Her steps faltered, but she said nothing. Silence had always been her shield, until another voice cut through, clear and sharp. "Leave her be," Elara blinked. At the end of the hall stood Kalen, one of the younger warriors. His dark hair fell into his eyes, his stance relaxed but firm. He looked at the whispering girls with mild disdain before turning his attention to Elara. "You all right?" he asked, his tone gentler. She swallowed. "Yes, I'm fine." Kalen studied her for a moment, then offered the barest hint of a smile. "Still, if you ever need someone at your back, you know where to find me." Warmth spread across her chest, unwanted, confusing. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not as the Beta's daughter, not as someone invisible, but as if she mattered. She murmured her thanks and hurried past, but she couldn't shake the strange flutter in her stomach. Later that day, as she carried supplies across the training yard, she felt the weight of another gaze, the Alpha. He stood at the edge of the sparring circle, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. But when Kalen crossed the yard and fell into step beside her, the Alpha's jaw tightened visibly. "Elara," Kalen said, taking the basket from her with ease, "you shouldn't have to carry this alone." Before she could protest, a low growl cut across the yard. "She doesn't need your help." Elara froze. The Alpha's eyes burned into Kalen, his dominance radiating like heat off the sun. The warriors nearby went silent, tension thickening the air. Kalen held the Alpha's gaze, unflinching, before handing the basket back to Elara. "Just being courteous, Alpha. Then learn the difference between courtesy and overstepping." His voice was ice. Elara's cheeks burned. She wanted to disappear, to vanish into the stones beneath her feet. But before she could retreat, the Alpha's gaze flicked to hers, sharp, possessive, as though daring her to accept Kalen's attention. Her breath caught. He had rejected her before the entire pack. Yet here he stood, bristling at another wolf's nearness. Kalen gave her a small nod before walking away, leaving the tension simmering between her and the Alpha. "Stay away from him." The Alpha muttered under his breath as he passed her, his shoulder brushing hers. Elara's heart thundered. She wanted to ask why, but all she managed was a single thought that rang through her chest, fierce and dangerous, if he didn't want her. Why did he care so much when someone else did? The night patrol was meant to be uneventful, just a quiet watch along the borders, guarding against rogues. But when Elara reported for duty, her heart sank. The Alpha himself was waiting at the edge of the forest. "Everyone else is covering the northern ridge," he said, his voice low, unreadable. "You're with me." Her throat went dry. She wanted to protest. Surely another warrior would serve him better, but the steel in his tone allowed no refusal. So she followed him into the woods, the shadows swallowing them whole. For a long while, only the crunch of leaves underfoot broke the silence. The moonlight filtered through the branches, painting silver patterns across his broad shoulders. Every step beside him was a battle against her own heartbeat. Finally, she whispered, "You didn't have to put me on patrol." He glanced at her, eyes catching the moonlight like liquid fire. "I wanted to see for myself that you can handle it." Her chest tightened. Or to see if Kalen was right, that I shouldn't be alone. His jaw flexed. Kalen doesn't know what he's talking about. The bitterness in his voice startled her. She turned away, hugging her cloak closer. "Why do you care who speaks to me, Alpha? You made your feelings clear." The words slipped out before she could stop them. The rejection, the humiliation. It all still burned. She half expected him to snap to remind her of her place. Instead, he stopped walking. "Elara," he said quietly, and the sound of her name from his lips wrapped around her like a caress. "Do you think it was easy to stand before the pack and say those words?" Her breath caught. She turned to him, startled, searching his face. For once, his mask had slipped. Beneath the iron control was something raw, tortured. Her voice shook. "Then why did you?" The silence that followed was thick, pulsing with unspoken truths. He stepped closer, the air between them sparking with a dangerous energy. She could feel the heat radiating from him, smell the mix of cedar and storm that was uniquely his. For one fragile moment, the world stilled. His hand lifted, hesitant, almost trembling, before he caught himself and clenched it into a fist, Because what I feel for you isn't safe. Her lips parted, her pulse racing. The night around them seemed to breathe, the forest itself holding its breath. Before she could speak, a howl tore through the trees, sharp and urgent. Rogues, the moment shattered. He growled, shifting his stance, eyes blazing with battle. Fire, stay behind me. But even as he lunged forward to meet the threat, Illyra's heart wasn't on the danger ahead. It was still echoing with the words he hadn't meant to say, words that made her realize the rejection might not have been the truth at all. The packhouse courtyard buzzed with restless energy the next morning. Warriors whispered, Omegas hurried with nervous hands, and an unspoken tension thickened the air. Illyra lingered on the outskirts, watching as a foreign patrol entered through the gates. At their head strode a woman whose presence was impossible to ignore. Tall, striking, with hair the color of raven's wings and eyes glinting like obsidian, she moved as if the world belonged to her. Every motion spoke of power, grace honed into a weapon. A ripple of murmurs followed her. That's Selene, someone whispered, Alpha-born, from the Moonclaw pack. Illyra's stomach twisted. Selene walked straight to the center of the courtyard, her gaze locking onto the Alpha with a claim as bold as a brand. Eric, she said, her voice smooth as velvet, I've come for what is mine. Gasps stirred through the crowd. Illyra froze. Mine, Eric's expression darkened, his jaw tight. Selene, you were not invited. Selene only smiled, stepping closer, her hips swaying with deliberate provocation. Did the moon goddess not invite us all? You can't fight destiny, Eric. You know it as well as I do. Her words cut deeper than Illyra wanted to admit. Destiny, mate, the very thing she had been denied, stripped of, humiliated over. Now here was this stunning she-wolf, claiming it as her right. Illyra forced herself to breathe evenly, to keep her expression neutral even as her insides knotted. Selene turned, her sharp gaze sweeping across the crowd, and landing on her. A slow, knowing smile curled her lips, and this must be the beta's daughter. She purred, how quaint, still lurking in the shadows. Heat flushed Illyra's cheeks, but before she could respond, Eric's voice sliced through the tension. Enough! His tone was lethal, the command of an alpha that brooked no defiance. The courtyard fell silent. Selene's smirk faltered, but only for a heartbeat. Do you deny what the moon goddess has marked? Selene pressed, stepping closer to him, her hand grazing the edge of his arm. Illyra's chest constricted. She couldn't bear to see it, couldn't bear the thought that he might accept. Eric's eyes burned, his wolf close to the surface, every muscle taut with restraint. When he spoke, his words were like thunder. I deny nothing, he said, his voice rough, but you will not claim me. The crowd erupted in murmurs, shock rippling through the air. Selene's eyes widened, just for a second, before narrowing into a glare of pure venom. You'll regret that, she hissed. Illyra's breath caught, torn between disbelief and the dangerous hope swelling inside her. Eric had not chosen Selene, but as Selene's dark gaze flicked back to her, filled with unspoken threat, Illyra knew the rival Wolf would not let this go. And whatever storm was coming, it would have her name written in its heart. The night came heavy with silence, pressing down like a weight on the packlands. After Selene's arrival, whispers had turned into storms, wolves debating the alpha's refusal, questioning the future of their pack. Illyra could not sleep. Her chest felt too tight, her thoughts a tangle of Selene's smirk and Eric's thunderous denial. She sat on the edge of the training field, moonlight painting her skin pale silver. Footsteps crunched behind her. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. His presence always reached her first, like heat before flame. You shouldn't be out here alone. Eric's voice rumbled low. She stiffened, not trusting her heart to behave. Why not? Wolves everywhere. I doubt anyone would dare touch me now. Not with Selene circling. Bitterness laced her words before she could swallow them back. He moved closer, his shadow spilling over hers. Selene isn't your concern. Illyra laughed softly, though there was no humor in it. She made me her concern the moment she looked at me like prey. She rose to her feet, turning to face him. Why did you deny her? Everyone expected you to accept. Eric's gaze locked onto hers, burning with something she couldn't name. For a long moment he didn't speak, as though the answer clawed at his throat. Finally, he said hoarsely, "Because if I accept a mate, she dies." The world seemed to tilt. Illyra blinked, unable to grasp the meaning. What? His jaw clenched. "There's a prophecy. Long before I became Alpha, the seer told my father that if I ever confessed love, if I ever bound myself to a mate, she would be taken by death before the next moonrise. The moon goddess cursed me for the sins of my bloodline." Her heart hammered. A curse. That was why he had rejected her, why he carried his cold mask. You pushed me away because you thought loving me would kill me." Her voice cracked, trembling. His eyes softened with anguish she had never seen before. "You think I wanted to humiliate you, to make you suffer? Every time I see you, Illyra, He cut himself off, fists curling. "I've lived with this torment for years. Better you hate me than die because of me." Tears pricked her eyes, hot and stinging. The truth was crueler than any rejection. He hadn't just denied her. He had denied himself. "You should have told me." She whispered, "I couldn't." His voice dropped, raw. "If you knew, you would never let me go." The space between them crackled with everything unsaid. Her wolf surged beneath her skin, aching to close the distance to touch him, to prove fate wrong. But the curse loomed like a blade above them both, and from the shadows of the trees, a pair of eyes gleam, watching. Selene, the rival, had heard everything. The air in the pack house was thick with unease. Messengers from the borders reported unrest, Moonclaw wolves gathering, Selene's influence spreading like a poison. The council muttered of alliances, of bloodshed, of war. Illyra stood near the great hearth, listening as warriors argued in harsh tones. Her hands twisted in her skirts, but her mind wasn't on politics. It replayed the words Eric had spoken in the moonlight. If I ever confessed love, she would die. That truth clung to her like chains. When the council dismissed, Eric lingered at the edge of the room. His eyes sought hers, a storm trapped in dark irises. For a long moment neither moved. Then he beckoned her silently and slipped into the adjoining hall. She followed. The hall was empty, torches casting flickering shadows across stone walls. Eric leaned against the frame, arms crossed, but his mask of cold control was cracking. "You shouldn't look at me that way," he muttered. Her throat tightened. "What way? Like you still believe there's a chance." Her voice broke before she could steady it. "Because there is. Curse or no curse, Eric. You can't keep living like this." Pushing away the only person who, she faltered, swallowing hard, who's always been yours. The silence stretched, heavy and aching. His fists clenched at his sides, every muscle taut with restraint. "Illyra," he rasped, her name a plea. He took a step forward, then another, until the heat of him wrapped around her. His hand hovered near her cheek, but didn't touch, trembling with the effort to hold back. "You don't know what you're asking of me. If I give in, if I speak the words I've buried, I damn you." Her tears slipped free, glittering in the firelight. "And if you keep silent, you damn us both." His breath shuddered, wolf fighting inside him, torn between fear and desire. The torchlight caught the raw torment in his face, and then, finally, he broke. "I've seen you since we were children," he whispered fiercely. "Every smile, every scar, every time you looked at me as if I wasn't the cursed Alpha, but just a man. You are the only thing I've ever wanted, Illyra, the only one." Her heart stopped, the confession she had dreamed of, the truth she thought she'd never hear. It was hers. But before she could speak, a howl split the night outside, urgent, sharp, filled with warning. Eric tore his gaze away, shoulders stiffening. "They're here." He growled, the rival pack. Selene had made her move. He gripped Illyra's hand for the first time, rough and desperate. "Stay close. I won't let them take you." The war was at their doorstep, and his confession now bound them together, curse or not. The howl had barely faded before the night erupted into chaos. From the tree line, shadows surged, Moonclaw warriors spilling into the clearing like a tide of teeth and steel. Torches flared, steel clashed, and the scent of blood filled the air. Illyra's wolf strained against her skin, urging her forward, urging her to fight. But beside her, Eric was already moving. Alpha power exploding in his voice as he roared commands. Form the line, protect the pups, drive them back to the borders. His presence cut through the chaos, a pillar of dominance that made even enemy wolves hesitate. Yet Selene emerged from the fray with a predatory grace, her raven, dark hair whipping around her, her eyes locked on him. "You should have accepted me, Eric," she spat, circling. "I would have made you unstoppable. Now you'll lose everything. Your pack, your power." Elara stiffened as Selene's glare fell on her. The rival she-wolf lunged, claws flashing. Elara shifted in an instant, her wolf form surging forth, sleek silver fur catching the moonlight. She met Selene head on, teeth clashing with hers in a furious snarl. Pain seared across her shoulder as claws raked, but she pushed back with all the strength that years of silent love had forged inside her. Eric's roar shook the night. He joined the fight, his massive black wolf tearing through enemy ranks, scattering them like leaves before a storm. But Selene was fast, fueled by fury and pride. She dodged a strike, snapping at Elara again. "You don't deserve him," Selene shrieked, half wolf, half human in her shifting fury. "You're nothing but a shadow at his side." Elara's heart blazed. "I may be a shadow, but I'm his." With a burst of strength, she sank her teeth into Selene's flank, forcing a cry of rage from her rival. Eric seized the opening, pinning Selene to the ground with crushing force. His voice thundered over the battlefield, echoing with alpha power. "She is mine. She has always been mine." The words rang out, shattering the curse that had chained his heart for so long. A sharp crack split the air, like lightning across the heavens. For an instant, even the enemy wolves faltered, their eyes wide with awe and fear. Selene writhed beneath him, fury twisting her features. "You've doomed her," she spat, but Elara shifted back, bloodied yet unbroken, her human form trembling with strength. She met Eric's eyes and whispered fiercely, "Then I'll face doom at your side." Something ancient shifted in that moment. The curse that had haunted his bloodline began to unravel, threads of shadow dissolving into the night air. Selene screamed as the power of the moon goddess turned against her, her body convulsing before she tore free and vanished into the forest, retreating with her broken warriors. The battlefield stilled. Moonlight poured down on them, silver and serene, as though blessing what had been spoken. Eric, still panting, turned to Elara, fear, relief, and unrestrained love burning in his eyes. He reached for her, his hand trembling as it brushed her blood-stained cheek. "You were never meant to be my weakness," he whispered. "You are my strength." And with the pack gathered, with the night still humming from battle, he kissed her as if claiming not just his mate, but his future. The battle had ended, but its echo still lingered in the forest. The scent of smoke, the hush of wolves nursing wounds, the quiet prayers whispered under the fading moonlight. The pack gathered in the courtyard as dawn's first light bled across the horizon. Their alpha stood at the center, bloodied yet unbowed, his presence a force that steadied trembling hearts. Beside him stood Elara, wrapped in a simple cloak, silver hair tangled, her wounds hastily bound. Whispers rippled through the crowd, they had all heard it. The confession roared in the heart of battle. "She is mine. She has always been mine." For so long, she had been the beta's daughter who lingered in the shadows unnoticed. Now every gaze was on her, but she didn't see them. She only saw him. Eric turned to her, the firelight of torches catching the storm still simmering in his eyes. Yet there was something else there too, something raw and unguarded. "Elara," he said, her name breaking from his lips for the first time, not as an order, not as a reprimand, but as a vow. Her breath caught. That single word, spoken with reverence, undid the years she had spent hiding her love. He took her hand, rough calluses brushing her skin. His voice dropped, soft but steady enough for every wolf present to hear. "For years I feared you would be my end. Tonight I learned you are my beginning. No curse, no goddess, no rival will take you from me. You are my mate, my heart, my future." A hush fell over the pack. Even the morning birds seemed to hold their song. Tears blurred Elara's vision. She had dreamed of this moment, but never like this. Never after bloodshed, never with so much at stake. Yet it was more beautiful than she could have imagined. She swallowed past the ache in her throat. "I loved you long before you ever saw me. I thought I would carry that love alone until my last breath. But if you'll have me, Eric, curse or no curse, I'll stand with you until the end." The alpha, feared and untouchable, let the world see his heart as he lowered his head, pressing his forehead to hers. The bond between their wolves ignited, threads of silver weaving through their souls, binding them in a way that no curse could sever. The pack erupted in howls, some in joy, some in awe, but none in defiance. Their alpha had chosen, and the moon herself seemed to bless it. Later, when the noise had faded and only the quiet of dawn remained, Eric sat with Alara on the steps of the pack house. The world was painted in shades of gold and rose, and for the first time in years, his shoulders were not weighed down by fear. He turned to her, voice softer than she had ever heard. "Say it again," he murmured. She smiled through her tears. "I love you." And when his lips captured hers once more, the curse that had haunted them was nothing but dust on the wind. Forever, she would remember this morning, the one where the Alpha finally said her name with love.